Welcome back, Lord of the Rings fans. This is the Lord of the Rings Gamer YouTube channel. Today I'll be kicking off a new series of videos that will revolve around building Lord of the Rings decks and talking about the actual gameplay of the Lord of the Rings trading card game. So later videos in this series will actually feature two decks from each of the individual movie block sets. So that's like the Fellowship of the Ring block, the Two Tower block, and the Return of the King block. And I'll be discussing the deck tech and strategy of each of those decks and kind of face them off head to head, so to speak. The aim of this first video is to build a Return of the King deck on the spot by doing an unboxing of the Eomer starter deck and then trying to upgrade it with a few booster packs. So back when the game first came out, this was my kind of initial way to building quick decks to playing casual games. I would buy a starter deck and then buy a couple booster packs and then mash it all together and hopefully win a game. But before we rip into anything, if you enjoy this kind of content and anything Lord of the Rings related, be sure to like this video, leave a comment, and hit the subscribe button. So first thing to note when it comes to building a deck for Lord of the Rings TCG is that you require a few things. You require a ring bearer, which in this case will be Frodo, who requires the One Ring. There's many different versions of One Rings, but we'll stick to the one that's provided in this starter deck. And you also need a 60 card draw deck, which is split at a minimum of 60 cards in your draw deck. Split 30 cards for the free people side, so that's like your companions, your good guys, and 30 cards on the shadow side. So those are the minions and the bad guys. And then you also have a 9-card adventure deck, and these are the sight cards that you'll use to kind of progress in the game. Each player comes to the table with that deck, and each player comes with a 9-card adventure deck, and essentially the objective of the game is to make it to Site 9, be the first one there and survive, or be the last surviving ring bearer, essentially. So aka you have to destroy and corrupt your opponent's ring bearer. So in this video, I won't be doing too deep of a dive on the actual deck strategy of this deck because we're kind of just building it off the cuff. But yeah, so let's just rip into this box now. So, do a quick peruse of the box. For the Return of the King set, there's also the Aragorn starter deck as well. I had a couple extra Eomer ones, so I thought I would use this one for the video. Each starter deck comes with, one thing I should mention is that each starter deck actually comes with 3 random rares. And a rulebook, always handy. The actual PDF copy of these rulebooks can be found online at the Lord of the Rings TCG Wiki website, which I'll definitely link below in the description. So each starter deck comes with 2 Eomers. There should be 2 somewhere. Probably one later on, but so Eomer, it's one of the premium cards that you get for this deck. So leave them off on the side. And then here's the One Ring that I was talking about. So this is the one that we'll just build off of. There's definitely a lot of other better rings that you could use. And then here's the set 7, the Return of the King set, common Frodo that's provided. So unless we pull a better Frodo, we'll keep that off to the side. And essentially what I'll do is I'll split everything off into the free people side and the minions side. So obviously this is the minions. I don't know if it's randomly sorted. It looks pretty random. I was hoping it was going to be somewhat organized, but that's okay. Usually how I build a deck is keep the companions together, keep your possessions and items, artifacts together, and then keep your events and conditions together. Maneuver. I'll put all the shadows off to the side, as we'll deal with them afterwards. I'm guessing our rares will be the last 3 cards. There's another spear, minion, riding armor, halberd sword, event, companion, event, possession, mount. Lots of orcs. Oh, there's the other premium Eomer. I believe he's called to be the starting, so basically we get an extra one. Whether we include him in the deck or not is up to us. Usually if you have a starting, usually if a companion's in the starting fellowship, a lot of times you don't bother having multiple copies, but you can always discard them to heal. So, and then here is our second starting companion. Possession, minion. Oh, and then here's our adventure deck. I won't look too deeply into these. I'm sure these site cards are good enough for this deck, so we won't bother upgrading the sites. 9, and then here are our rares. So we got Elrond. It's a pretty good pull for a starter deck. Unfortunately, is, if you can see here, to play spot Aragorn or an elf. So that will, unless we pull an Aragorn that we want to include in the deck, Elrond won't be a good upgrade for this Rohirrim deck. Ah, nice. We got the rare Eomer, skilled tactician. We'll have to do a side-by-side comparison, but I feel like this might be a clear starting companion. And scouting to play Spot Smeagol. So I can almost guarantee we won't be using this card. So I'll keep the Elrond card and the scouting card off to the side for now, and I'll move the minion cards off to the side, and we'll look at starting to upgrade what we have for the free people. So just a side by side. So one thing I should mention, any kind of deck building decisions I make in this video, they're definitely kind of very off the cuff and quick thought of, not really thinking too deeply. So if you have any suggestions or recommendations, definitely throw them in the comments. I would definitely like to hear them, because I don't want to spend hours reading every card in fine detail to make this video an hour long. But just at a quick glance, you can see this Eomer is quite powerful. Play a Rohirrim companion to take a Rohirrim possession or a Rohirrim skirmish event into hand from your discard pile. So that's pretty, especially if he's in the starting fellowship, which he would be, of course. That's pretty strong, because every Rohirrim companion that you play throughout the game, you can start pulling possessions and events that you've played. Events could be like strength boosting cards that you play in skirmishes. So I think it's safe to say that we'll definitely use this one. So we'll say goodbye to these 2 premium Eomers and put them off to the sideboard. All right. So here's basically our starting fellowship. We'll keep them there. We got our 3 Rohirrim guards. Since they're not unique, they don't have that black dot that you see next to more of the named companions. You can actually have all 3 of them on the playing field at any given time, so definitely having more of those would be handy. So we'll keep them out there. In this Theoden, let's see how he does. Each time the fellowship moves, you may exert a Rohirrim companion to exert a minion. And not too bad. That's more if you plan on moving more times throughout the game, or like double moving essentially, or if you're actually moving when there's actually minions in play. So it could be handy. And let's take a quick look at our possessions. So we have our swift steed rather. There's another one. And then we have 2 hobbit swords. And then looks like 3 spears. And 2 riding armors. Okay, so we'll keep those off to the side. There might be better possessions that we might pull, or just to add. I think for the most part, I'd probably only keep 1 hobbit sword in this deck. It's good to have one for Frodo in case he ever has to fight. It's better that he has more than his usual 4 strength. Because you'll notice that he'll have 3 naturally and then 1 from the ring. But we'll leave that in play for now. And we'll take a quick look at the events. Doesn't appear to be any conditions in this starter deck. But we have morning came. So we have 2 of these guys. So you can see here's like a strength bonus there. Strength +4. A lot of these event cards, I kind of quickly read them ahead of time. They kind of like the strategy of this Free People deck is to force your opponent to put cards randomly at the bottom of its deck. Randomly from their hand to the bottom of the deck. So that's kind of good for cycling out any cards from your opponent's hand that might be crucial to their game strategy. So that's a booster, strength booster. Same with this one, +2, or if mounted, same thing. Random card from hand beneath deck. And then these 2 events, choose an opponent. For each mounted companion you spot, that opponent must remove 1 or place a random card from hand beneath. Place a random card from hand beneath their draw deck. Ooh, it's tough to say. All right, so yeah, so that cycles a lot of their cards. Good to know for kind of like this kind of starter deck strategy. So that's kind of what we're going off of. So to upgrade this starter deck, I basically grabbed a bunch of extra booster packs I had lying around from this block set. So we have 6 Mount Doom and 2 Return of the Kings. The Return of the Kings are a little more higher sought after, so I'll do those ones last. So we'll open up these Mount Doom booster packs first. And as we're cycling through these cards, I'll basically pull out anything that might be of use for our deck. So anything that's Rohirrim or any strong card that might just work well for us. So I'll still do the usual 3 uncommons, 1 rare, and 1 possibly foil. Orc armor. See, that might be a better card to replace for one of the Hobbit swords potentially. Then we got Nazgul card. We're not working with Nazguls. No Gondor Men. Flames Within. Wave Initiative. So we are working with Sauron minions, so I'll keep this off to the side for our shadow side. We're not working with Sauron Uruk-hai though. This might be of use for us for the shadow, so I'll keep that. I don't think this would be a benefit for us. So. And what is our rare? Celeborn. Not a bad pull. Not good for our deck, but still good to have. The other Return of the King deck that I plan on building for the Return of the King series is actually an elf deck, so this will work out well for that. And we have no foil. All right. Next booster pack. Okay, so this card, burden removal is not a bad strategy. Looking through the starter deck, we didn't have any of that, so that's not a bad thing to kind of have in our back pocket. Orc Armor, we've already seen one of those. Don't really need it. Now the Raider Culture, we're not working with. Play this condition only during a skirmish. You never know. That could be handy if Frodo ever gets caught up in a battle. I'll keep that off to the side. Nope, no Gandalf. Actually, well, we do have Gandalf. The only thing is, with the starter deck, we're only provided with one Gandalf card. So this Gandalf companion, it might be more of like a late game kind of throw into the battle and help absorb some of the damage when you get swarmed by your opponent. So we won't plan on any Gandalf card boosting. Oh, this is a good card to keep in your hand for, well, in your support area rather, to help out Frodo. Ring Bearer Protection's quite an important thing to incorporate with your deck building. And we have a rare Eowyn. Let's see. No foil, no. All right. So, being that it's a rare card, it's probably better than the provided Eowyn, but let's take a closer look. So with this card, you can discard possession born by Eowyn to make her strength +2. It's not too bad for common. And because we know from the rare Eomer that we can return those possessions back to our hand, so that's good to know. The rare Eowyn, on the other hand, exert her to choose an opponent. That opponent must wound a minion for each wound on each minion skirmishing Eowyn. So that's good. That's quite strong, because with our horses and with playing Rohirrims, at the start of each skirmish involving a bear that has a horse, a mount, each minion skirmishing that bear must exert. So that's quite a good game text there to incorporate. So I think it's safe to assume that this rare Eowyn will be added to our deck. So I'm going to throw her there and then chuck this one off to the side. So not too bad in terms of upgrades so far. Building decks like this are kind of like, it's almost like drafting, where you're just kind of stuck with whatever cards you get. So I've seen a lot of orc armor, so we definitely don't need that one. Oh, did I? Yeah, I did. No Raider. I've already seen Great Heart. So Mount Doom is a smaller set, set 10. So there will be a lot of duplicate cards, I'm expecting, as we've already seen. No Nazgul's. First uncommon, no Raiders. Spot 2 Hobbit Companions. Yeah, so right now we only have Frodo, so this card is not relevant to us. And make note that it's a regroup event, so I don't see it ever being to our benefit. And let's see, it looks like another elf companion, Elrond. Hey, I think our next Return of the King block deck will be quite strong, with Elrond and Celeborn already good to go. And doesn't look like no foil. Alright, got 3 Mount Doom packs left. Got that right. No Raiders. This is a Sauron Orc card, but it is a Besieger, so the starter deck doesn't really work with Besiegers. But it is a strength 12, kind of high costing, but so maybe I'll keep it off to the side just in case. Nazgul, nope. Gondor card, no. Make haste. So this doesn't come into play because we can't return Frodo to our hand. He's our ring bearer. This won't be relevant to us either. Oh, another Besieger. Just to play it safe, and because we're only upgrading based on a few packs, I'll keep this off to the side as we go through the shadow upgrades. But I don't think it's going to be useful for our shadow side. Definitely not this. Sight, and what's our rare card? Oh, Oak Ravager. So this actually conveniently will be very helpful for our shadow deck, because it does deal with adding and removing threats. So that's good to know. So we'll keep that one. Threats is a particular game text that whenever you add or remove threats, certain things like this, remove 2 threats to discard a condition, or maybe remove 2 threats to make a minion strength +4, different things like that. They also, so for threats, I won't speak too much to rulings, like game ruling in this video, but threats are something that you can actually add them up to the number of companions that your opponent has, and those get added to your opponent's dead pile. And then once you kill one of your opponent's companions, then the number of threats that are on the dead pile get dished out to the surviving companions as wounds. So Works pretty well. It works similar to like archery wounds. So definitely having a card like this. Let's see if that comes focus. There we go. Isn't a bad idea, because then you can, if you're not too worried about removing burdens, you can remove threats, if that's more of a threat, we'll say. Bad pun. All right, let's keep rolling. Okay. So another flames within. I'll keep that off to the side for the shadow. Make haste, not relevant for us. Not relevant. Corsair Boatswain, not relevant for us. Advanced Marauder. Not a bad card to throw in there. Not relevant for us. Definitely not relevant for us. And a rare card. Ooh, Gothmog. That's a good pull there. So even though the Shadow Starter deck doesn't really deal too much with doing site controlling, you know, it's a strong orc, so it's a card that I would definitely throw in, just because it's just, you know, if you got the Twilight cost to play it, you know, it's a big bad orc, why not? So I'll keep him off to the side, and we got no foil there. So we got our last Mount Doom pack. Really relevant. No, not a bad card for our shadow side. Nope, another one of those guys, not bad to include. So keep in mind, exert a Hobbit to make another Hobbit. So again, because we only have Frodo in our deck so far, and most likely we'll only have Frodo in this deck, definitely not relevant for us. Spot 2 Shire Companions. Nope, so that's not. Initiative's another game text that was added, I believe, just in the Return of the King, if I remember correctly, the Return of the King sets. I won't get into it too much here, but unless it comes up later in the deck review videos. And our rare is Gorbag. And it's not a foil, eh? Nope. Well, Mount Doom was pretty good for the rare pulls, I must say. We grabbed these 3 guys, plus some other good ones that we can add to our Rohirrim deck here. All right. So the last 2 packs we're gonna add or open up, and we'll try to see if we can upgrade, is the Return of the King booster packs. So we've seen some burden control, so burden removal, threat removal. We haven't come across any healing or drawing power. That's another kind of key component that's good to have for your decks. We already have quite a bit of strength boosting and weapons and possessions. A little bit of ring bearer protection, so that's good. Those are kind of like some of the key things you want to keep in mind when you're building your your free people side of your deck. So let's see, Gondor, no. Gondor, no. Raider. So this, the Return of the King set 7. It's a much larger set than the Mount Doom set, so the odds of getting anything that might boost up this deck are kind of slim, but oh, we got another Swift Steed. That's not bad. So we were provided 3 with the starter deck, and as per the game rules, you're allowed up to 4 cards. So I would say it's definitely worth adding that one to our pile. Or Granger, I think that's another one that we already have. Not with the starter, but it's already in. Or is it? Either way, it's a Sauron Orc. So here's a companion. Discard a condition to make him strength +1. So we don't really have any conditions at this point. And since we're down to our last 2 packs, I don't foresee any use for this guy in our deck. Sight cards. So yeah, this deals with besiegers or controlling sight. So again, the deck tech of this starter deck doesn't really deal with that on the shadow side, so we'll forego that for now. And not him, of course. And here's our rare. So definitely not useful for us as he's a Gondor man. And did we get a foil? No foil. All right. All right, now our last booster pack for our upgrade. And then we can actually start formalizing this deck a little better. Based on what I've seen so far, it should be pretty quick at this point. Orc Brood. So this guy, we get 2 of these in our starter deck, so not a bad idea to throw him in. Oh, you get a Rohirrim companion. While he's in your starting fellowship, he's -1. So we already know basically who our starting fellowship is. But you never know, maybe Elite Rider with Eomer maybe is a better starting fellowship than Eowyn. We'll just have to keep in mind that we only have 1 Eowyn copy of this one. So when we're actually playing the game, we might not get her until, you know, turn 4 or 5 or something. So we'll definitely keep him off to the side. Raider card, not relevant to us. Noble Intentions, this is a reprint of the Fellowship block. Not bad for boosting Frodo in case he's got a battle. If we're at that point in the game, you're probably killing whatever companion has to exert to defend Frodo, but you know what, we'll throw that in the maybe pile. Because the whole point of the game is to defend Frodo and survive. Legolas. He's an archer. So even because we're only upgrading with only a handful of useful cards, a card like this might not be a bad idea to throw into the mix. He's an archer. He's relatively cheap. You can throw him in kind of like Gandalf, maybe late in the game. You can just maybe take out a big, well, rather he'll get taken out by a big minion, but at least he'll kind of prevent somebody else from fighting him. So maybe we'll keep him off to the side. So this one, I'm not dealing with any allies, so that's not really useful for us. And let's see what our rare is. Ah, Gimli, Feared Axeman. Not a bad card, not very useful for us, but... And we have no foil. All right. We'll move these cards out of the way. And I kind of organized what we have so far. And remember that the minimum is 30 for our free peoples, but you can really go as high as you want. Usually a good ballpark is to go no higher than say 35, unless you have a lot of drawing power, and that's like your deck is built on cycling. Like the Dwarven decks, they delve deep, those decks, so they're known to be a little bit bigger. But for the most part, you want to keep your decks quite small. So on the companion front, I think for the time being, we'll just keep this as the starting fellowship. If you think Elite Rider should be mixed in there, definitely throw it in the comment, but we'll definitely throw them into the deck, that's for sure. Legless, I'll throw off to the side for now because I don't think he'll be added in, but if there's room, he might not be a bad person to include. A lot of times in terms of like ratios for companions to possessions to conditions and whatnot, it all depends on the deck strategy. For this deck strategy, because you're cycling your opponent's cards, there's really no set in stone kind of ratio, but like for this case, I would try to keep it kind of like a 1-to-1-to-1, where you have maybe 10 character cards, 10 possession cards, and then 10 boosting cards or conditions. So here we have these three. We'll definitely throw in our one Theoden. We have our 3 Rohirrim guards. And then our 1 Gandalf that we'll throw in. So he'll be quite strong because he's strength 9, unless you cannot spot 3 companions of the same culture, i.e. the Rohirrim culture, which we suspect by the time he comes into play, we'll have, 4 or 5 Rohirrims. So we got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 8 companion cards. We have our 4 steeds, 2 riding armors. So we didn't actually look at this card too closely yet, but if you have initiative and bearer is about to take a wound in a skirmish, discard 3 cards from hand to prevent that wound. So the initiative game text, I know I mentioned it a little bit earlier, but essentially as the free people's player, when it's your turn to play your good guy cards, if you have 4 more cards in your hand, you have initiative. If you have less, the shadow players, whether you're against one shadow player or multiple shadow players, they would have initiative. Or if there's other cards in play that say, given some certain condition, whatever player has initiative, then that's the case. But basically for this case, the idea is you would have initiative, aka you have 6 cards in your hand, and then you're about to take a wound. So instead you discard 3 cards from your hand to prevent that wound. And then after that you have only 3 cards in your hand, so therefore you no longer have initiative. So you couldn't do that again potentially. So just something to keep in mind. So we have our 4 steeds, 2 riding armors, 3 long spears, our 1 hobbit sword. I'll take that 1 out. Maybe 1 orc armor. Might not be of use, but if we're playing against orcs or orcais, it's not too bad. So that's essentially our possessions. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 there. And then for our boost, we didn't get a whole lot of boost pull from our deck, from our booster packs, but that's okay. So we have the 6 initial ones that we got. And then we have some burden threat control. It's not too bad. This condition card that we pulled, not too bad for some ring bearer protection, as well as the Tale of the Great Ring. It's not bad to keep as well. And then Noble Intentions. Why not? If Frodo has to fight, it's best that he doesn't get overwhelmed because you'll lose. So, and we have the room in this deck, so might as well throw it in there. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So I think we're a little short. 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, 27, 28, 29. So I think based on that, why not? Let's just throw Legolas into this deck. Really, when you're playing kind of in this pseudo draft style of gameplay, the more companions, the merrier, really. All right, so that is our Free People's 30 card deck. So because we went with 30 cards, we have to have 30 cards even on the minion side. All right, so let's quickly run through these guys. This video's taking a little longer than I expected. Oops. But that's okay. I would definitely like to hear your thoughts in the comment section about any changes that you would have made. Oops. Oh, there we go. As I mentioned, this deck will be kind of pitted against another Return of the King block deck, and we'll kind of do a little more of a deep dive into it. So odds are I'll probably tweak this deck a little bit more after this video or before the next video. And okay, let's see. So just for reference, we're provided with 25 cards. I did find it interesting when I looked up the deck list of the Eomer starter deck, or for really all the starter decks, that the Free Peoples and the Shadow cards are actually under 30 cards. So I'm guessing it's assumed that you would kind of upgrade the starter decks and not play a starter deck kind of straight out of the gate. Just move that a little bit. All right, so we have 25 cards. Now we'll look at what we got for in terms of upgrades. So I know we got this big bad minion. Doesn't really play too well with the actual game text, but quite strong. Kind of one of the things that I forgot to mention is that sure, one goal or objective is to get your Frodo, get your ring bearer to Site 9 and survive. Kind of a byproduct objective of that is to kill or corrupt your opponent's ring bearer, and one of the ways of doing that is by having a strong shadow deck. So there's many different strategies to kind of implement to do that, whether it be a swarm kind of tactic where you have more minions than your opponent has companions, basically forcing your opponent to have multiple minions on their Frodo, on their ring bearer. Or you can have some kind of beatdown type of strategy where usually pretty good with more stronger minions such as Urukais that are always like damage +1, which would provide more wounds whenever they win skirmishes, just to slowly kill off more and more companions, or of more of a corruption strategy. So that's more causing your Frodo to get to the maximum number of burdens, usually 10. So this deck definitely doesn't deal with the burden aspect, but that's one kind of approach that you can go with. But if you see, like, for instance, there's a card like this, which we only have one of so far, but each time a Sauron Orc overwhelms a companion, which, you know, might not happen too often, but if it does, add 3 burdens. So if you do that more than enough times, you can corrupt your opponent's Frodo or ring bearer. So let's see what we got. So we got a couple good rares. This one, Orc Ravager, is definitely one I would throw in because some of the cards we do have, such as Mordor Savage, can exert this minion and spot another Sauron minion to add a threat. And then a card like this, remove 2 threats to discard a condition. So if there's any kind of strong conditions that your opponent has, that's a good one to use to get rid of. Gothmog, I don't think we'll actually play him, but I'll keep him off to the side just in case. So I know we already have a Brood. Or I thought we did. Yeah, we already have 2 Broods. Discard 3 cards from hand to make this minion strength +3. Maybe having more of those guys. Discard this minion to make another minion, another Sauron Orc, strength +4. It's not a bad thing either. That's more of if you have a swarm approach. Later in the game, a lot of these cheaper orcs, you could probably spit out a lot of them. Kind of like the ratio, especially for this kind of shadow game strategy, is to have definitely more companions than not. Like you can see for the 25 shadow cards provided, only 4 of them are non-minions. So we'll definitely have lots of minions to play with. So Flames Within. It's not a bad boost card. I've used that before with another Sauron deck, so I think maybe, and it's cheap costing. Siegecraft I'm not a huge fan of because it is it's a response event, but it costs 4. but it is handy if, you know, if your first orc wins a skirmish, or if even if your last orc wins, all your orcs will get fierce until the regroup phase. Fierce basically means that they get to fight again, which sucks if you have a lot of orcs on the table for your opponent. Well, it sucks for them. But due to the cost, I think I'll probably take away 1 and then add in 2 of the flames within. So that plus the orc ravage, that's a net of 2, so we're up to 27. So we basically need 3 more cards. These ones are more for when your orcs are roaming, which is good up until site 6. Essentially, they're roaming, so that's not too bad. And they're relatively, you know, cost 3 for strength 9. It's pretty good. It's a besieger. We'll get rid of these besieger cards. Mortar wrench. Now you don't too often see 4 free people cultures. All right, so we'll dump those ones. So I think we'll add for our last 3. Let's see. Oops, just realized we actually have 3 orc officers. We don't have any orc ragers. We have a brood. Maybe we'll add another brood. You know what? Maybe not, because we're going to have a 30-30 size draw deck. We don't want to discard too many cards. So I think we might actually add these 3 here. These 2 guys, they're good for boosting up roaming minions, which will be relevant for the first 5 sites. And then this guy also causes each roaming minion to be fierce, which again for the first 5 sites they'll be relevant. Otherwise it's a pretty, you know, cheap, strong minion to throw in there. So we'll go with that. So yeah, that's basically our 30-30 Return of the King Eomer starter upgraded deck. I'll be sure to post the actual deck list, or what I end up keeping as the deck list. I might tweak it a little bit once I look at it a little more closely, but based on that, that's what we're kind of working with. We didn't really look at the Frodo, but you can see that the Frodo naturally has some good threat control there. And then if you look at the sites, one thing that I'll go back a little more closely to do as well is make sure, well, we can assume that the sites are relevant to Rohirrim and Sauron orcs, but we can always go back and see if we pulled any sites that might be a little better. Just as an example, for the site 1, each Rohirrim possession will cost 1 less, so that's quite good. So we definitely keep that one, unless there's a better one that I'm not thinking of. So yeah, so that's this video. Hope you enjoyed it. Once again, there'll be other videos coming up. The next one being actually the Fellowship of the Ring block deck review. Those decks are already built. They're not built kind of the same way this one was built. So they'll have a little more more thought and strategy put into them. But I hope you like this video. Once again, be sure to like, subscribe to the channel, and leave comments on this kind of deck, and it's kind of like the choices that I made. Some of the polls were kind of lucky based on what we're going for, so that was kind of nice. But yeah, leave your comments. I'd like to hear your recommendations and suggestions on this deck. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.